The Melbourne Declaration is a policy which sets the direction for the future of Australian schooling by identifying two overarching goals. Education is seen as the answer for ensuring future generations are successful in facing the challenges of the future. Goal 2 of the Melbourne Declaration is identified as all young Australians become successful learners, confident and creative individuals, and active and informed citizens. In order to achieve these goals, teachers must respond to the needs of their learners. Differentiation is the key to supporting student success for every individual learner, regardless of background, ability, and skill. Instructional differentiation is a framework to support effective teaching which involves providing different students with different methods to acquire the same knowledge. Successful differentiation requires educators to know their students, their learning styles, and interests in order to provide them with experiences and activities to improve their learning. Differentiated instruction comes in many forms, but is significantly recognized by the use of ongoing formative assessments. Differentiated instruction is developing and refining activities that respond to the needs and learning styles of students. Differentiation encourages a student-focused way of teaching and learning. Differentiation is not just for gifted students or those with learning difficulties. It should not be a form of dumbing down content or providing a set of unrelated activities for individual students. Differentiation is vital within the classroom as it reaches all students, supports them in developing skills and retaining knowledge, whilst granting them new opportunities to express this knowledge. Goal 1 of the Melbourne Declaration requires that Australian schooling promotes equity and excellence. This requires schools to ensure that all students are given equal educational opportunities regardless of background, cultural identity, socioeconomic status, gender, or geographic location. Successful work towards this goal begins in the classroom and the work of teachers to ensure students are being catered for. The creation of a class profile is a useful tool in developing a clear image of each student and how to approach teaching them successfully. Differentiation requires teachers to know each student in their classroom, their backgrounds, interests, learning styles, and their learning needs. To achieve successful learning environments that support student learning, educators need to focus on their individual student needs, ensuring their teaching practices create purposeful, effective opportunities and experiences to support each learner. Evidence of a class profile has been provided on screen, showing the vast differences between individual students in the same prep classroom. Collected within the class profile is information detailing their learning styles, learning levels, age, and other notes that inform teachers in their approach to crafting learning experiences. In the evidence provided, it is clear that visual learning is a consistent theme in the majority of students, whilst kinesthetic learning is the next preferred style, with oral and verbal only preferred by a small amount of students. The class profile also puts spotlights on the needs of particular students, including students identified as EALD, gifted, and some requiring extra assistance. The data collected with the class profile became the starting point for determining the strategies for differentiating instruction. An assessment task was selected from the Prep History curriculum strand. The purpose of the assessment is for students to identify the similarities and differences between family structures and to respond to questions regarding family history. Students explore the concept of family, including their own and others. The assessment package showed different resources for collecting evidence of learning, including examples of a family history journal. For the students identified in the class profile, many of the assessment products and processes would need to be altered in order to help them succeed. The following strategies were selected in response to this assessment task, differentiating the process, content, and product to ensure success for each student. Active learning is the process of which students are engaged in their learning through activities that use their interests to motivate and stimulate learning. Active learning can be achieved through the use of role play, games, music, and even technology. Active learning experiences can encourage collaborative learning and also be used to begin learning experiences by tuning in students to the lesson content. For this particular assessment, I would choose to explore the use of music and dance in order to differentiate the process of learning by using student interest. Some of the students in the class profile have been recognized as having sensory issues, which affect their ability to sit still for the extended periods of time. To engage these students, the use of tuning in activities such as dance and song would be effective in motivating engagement, whilst also providing them with the body movements that support their needs. There are many resources that use song and dance to explore family concepts, which is the focus of assessment. Using these resources would also be beneficial for the students identified as EALD, giving them the opportunity to explore family structures with familiar technology, song, and visual representations. Music and dance also gives the opportunity for students to be exposed to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander histories and family representations, which support the students identified as Indigenous within the classroom. Hands-on learning is a strategy that aims to support students who prefer learning styles that are more tactile or kinesthetic. Hands-on learning in the classroom can involve students accessing materials or using movement to explore the content. Hands-on learning is not just for kinesthetic learners, but benefits all learners, giving them the opportunity to learn by using their senses. Examples of hands-on learning that can enrich the history assessment includes using dolls, felt board materials, and even images. Hands-on learning also gives teachers the opportunity to differentiate the final assessment product that students complete. Visual and kinesthetic learners may be able to express their knowledge and learning through the use of hands-on materials. This would be an alternative product method for the student identified as being nonverbal. Physical access to learning materials would also be important for students who have difficulty with their vision. As part of the assessment, students are asked to create questions to explore family history. The students identified as being EALD who struggle with comprehension may find it difficult to verbally respond with these questions. Using materials such as visual images and cues would give them the opportunity to physically form the questions and express their knowledge. Peer teaching is an effective strategy which builds upon content knowledge, whilst also increasing the social skills and confidence of students. Peer teaching is a form of collaborative learning, involving one or more students teaching other students on a specific learning area. Whitman states that to teach is to learn twice, evidence that it is not only the students learning that develop skills, but also those delivering the content. In peer teaching, students are granted the opportunity to become more independent, giving teachers the ability to assist in other areas or to plan for future experiences. The class profile identified a student who was being approached as gifted, but who lacked experience in social environments. Peer teaching would give this student the ability to share their knowledge and skills with peers, whilst increasing their own social and confidence skills. Peer teaching, in regards to the assessment example, can be used to differentiate the content. Students can teach small groups, sharing their own experiences and knowledge on families, and also exploring how they recognise the similarities and differences. At a young age, prep students are forming their own social connections within the classroom. The use of a peer teacher may influence students who are struggling to comprehend tasks by teaching them in ways and languages which are familiar. The previous three identified strategies have enabled students to become engaged in a lesson by stimulating interest in content, whilst also supporting students through learning and teaching by differentiating the process and product. The final strategy sets to conclude the learning by incorporating the critical stage of learning, reflection. John Dewey states that we do not learn from experience, we learn from reflecting on an experience. Enabling students to reflect on what they have learnt in a lesson not only supports their own understanding, but also gives teachers a clear indication on where each student is in terms of their knowledge and understanding. Collecting evidence through formative assessment is an essential part of differentiation. The success of differentiation is based upon evidence of the learner's learning, which is collected through ongoing assessment. Using reflection to conclude each lesson will provide teachers with an insight into student knowledge and instruct them in further planning. To make reflection a valuable tool for all learners, teachers can use visual representations of the lesson as talking points. Visual and kinesthetic learners can also be further supported by giving them the option to create a drawing to explore their reflection, whilst verbal and oral learners can use discussion and exit slips to interpret their own reflection. No matter what teaching style an educator adapts, differentiation is the key in ensuring equal opportunities for success amongst all students. Differentiation, as explored in this presentation, is critical in supporting all different learning styles of the students, but also the special needs that some students may require. What works for one student may not work for the next. which is why teaching is constantly evolving. The best that teachers can do is educate themselves on the tools and knowledge that are available in preparing their lessons in order to achieve success for every student.